Nice. Hey everyone, my name is Onni, and I'm not going to talk about WebAssembly because I have no idea what that is. But instead, we are, as you will see, this demo about Nginx and embedded Lua, and how you could maybe skip slow parts of your current application and replace them with really fast and fancy stuff. Okay, let's get started. Can you raise your hand if you're using Nginx in one of your projects? Yeah, I think basically everyone, because it's really popular. Like everyone is using it. It's so you can do like so much with Nginx, and it's a web server. It's reverse proxy. It's load balancer, and it's also HTTP cache. And I think at least if you're not using Nginx for anything else, you're usually using it for SSL termination, so you can have HTTPS. Now we will see how you can use it as application server as well. We're going to use OpenResty. It's not a fork from Nginx, but it's like Nginx and huge amount of libraries and Lua JIT combined with Nginx, and it just makes developing the Lua modules so much easier because you can compile all of the modules by yourself, but that's really painful. Please don't do that. If you like your life, please don't compile Nginx with yourself. Okay, OpenResty. Has anyone heard about OpenResty before? Few hands. It's actually the machinery which is used by Cloudflare to provide their proxying services and their application firewall and so on. So it's it's really the most demanding stuff that you can pretty think of. And at least, if nothing else, using OpenResty, you can eliminate your small delay from the TCP connection to your PHP, FPM, or Node or Go backend, and you can use everything straight from the Nginx. And in our example app, we are looking at my good friend PHP. Yay! So Nginx is going to pass the request to PHP, which is going to talk to Redis, and we will see if we can optimize this and remove PHP altogether. And this service is just providing really simple HTTP API with get and post and delete options. And if you can't really concentrate into the talk, you can just see the source code over here. And let's see how this thing works. How can I escape the full screen? Yeah. All right. I have the project over here, and it's using Docker. Yeah. It's using few Docker containers. So there's Nginx, which is basically the OpenResty modification of Nginx. There's PHP, and there's Redis. And I have the original PHP setup in the port 8080, and the service which is only Nginx plus Lua on the port 8081. And what the service does, I have a small demo server which is running this. Let's see. All right. So I have all of the containers running, and what I should be able to do is to ask about any valid. Okay, maybe not. Yes, excellent. Yeah. So I can retrieve and store data. This is really basic stuff. Yep. I have stored one JSON data into this particular URL, and I can update it. And ask about it again. And what this is doing, it's using PHP, like super simple PHP program, like 50 lines of code, when storing stuff into Redis and getting it afterwards. And now I'm going to do a small test. Let's see. Let's clear this. And this is going to run like a software called Siege. Siege is software which you can use to load test your applications. It's like Apache benchmark, but just a more modern one. Okay. And what the test does, it stops and recreates all of the Docker services and asks tries to make as much requests as possible into the PHP service, which is running over here. It populates it with example data and asks about it as many times as it can with 200 threads and for 10 seconds. And we can see that, okay, it's doing quite well because I used all of the PHP black magic that I can think of to optimize the code. Usually you don't get these kind of numbers with your PHP code, but let's see if we run the same with the Nginx and minus the PHP. Nice demo effect. Zero availability. Please do this for your production services. It's great. Let's try it again. Yeah. Much more. I think I shouldn't test the machine where I'm running the service because it just takes all of the sockets away, and after the first test, the later ones are not going to do that well. So I will just quickly reboot the machine. Let's copy paste the PHP results from. It shouldn't because this is remote service. Okay, here is the PHP. Let's reboot. And once again. But this only happens because I'm testing and running it in the same machine. Okay, so let's compare these two. So this is the Nginx plus Lua, and here you can see the Nginx plus PHP. So it's three more with the same resources, three times more requests. So that's kind of like really plenty because we are only running this with a server with 2 gigabytes of RAM and 2 CPUs. So if you're having some like slow parts in your application, I would really recommend for you to convert some parts into the Lua. Let's see how this thing works. I tried to create really simultaneous, like a similar code in what I was doing in the PHP into the Lua. And with Lua, has anyone ever modified any nginx.conf files? Yeah, a few of you. I think this looks familiar when you're using PHP. You're just going to pass it into the PHP FPM service. But with Lua, you can create content blocks like inline code into your Nginx file. It can be anywhere. And what we are doing, we are just loading all of the libraries, what we are needing for the Nginx for this demo. And afterwards, just basic stuff, looking that, okay, did it connect successfully? Please return different result for get and post and delete. While you're developing Lua code, you might run into some problems with compared to the PHP. It's usually really simple to notice that you have something wrong in your application. You will just, okay, but you could have error page over here which is saying that you have syntax error in your page, but at least it's resulting in error 5500. And because this is actually production settings, we are not going to see that, okay, I have syntax error over in the file. But with Lua, it's not that easy. I will just fix this. And let's say if I make some modification into the Lua code, for example, syntax error over here, and let's reload the service. And now when I'm trying to access it, of course you will just get the Nginx internal server error. But developing Lua applications is kind of harder because you can't, or at least I don't know, or I'm not familiar with the tools which you should use with Lua, which is embedded in different program, and Nginx doesn't really provide good debugging tools for this. But what you can do is to use really high error level logging. I think info is good. You can also use debug, and after that you should see okay, here's the load balancing stuff what we did. And okay, here I can see that failed to load inline Lua code content by Lua, and it says the line and where there's something bad happening. And let's see, line number 116, and basically I did this, and it's not going to give like really nice results, and you're going to have hard time when you're trying to debug your services. But at least you can have something when you're using the logging level information. And it all of the Nginx variables are available to the Lua part. So for example, if I do this, some variable, I can create variables in Nginx like this, and when we cross over to the Lua side, it's going to be available as nginx.var.variable name. So here we could access and modify the same variable as we are having over here. And basically the OpenResty package contains so many libraries for the basic needs. There's also libraries for the MySQL. So you could basically just, if you're having a service like Drupal or WordPress and they will have database in MySQL, you could just skip the PHP part and use Lua to connect to the MySQL and check if the user is authenticated or however you're checking those like highly demanded parts in your application. And that's what I have been doing so far. And another good place to use this is that if you have let's say you have a newspaper which has multiple different levels, access levels. There's levels for the premium content, and there's smaller parts of the premium content. And if you're having thousands and thousands of users, it's usually a bad idea to try to serve all of those things from PHP. You should cache them and then implement some Lua code which will check at, okay, does this user have access into this premium content? And for that specific situation, this is really useful. Okay. You can find this presentation from my GitHub. And thanks for listening. If you have any questions, now is a good time to ask them. Okay. Okay. Here first.
Is Nginx supporting anything else except Lua?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Is Nginx supporting anything else except Lua?
Yeah, they just implemented Nginx script, which is basically JavaScript, like a subset of JavaScript in Nginx. But I think like it doesn't have that much libraries at the moment, and it might be only available for the Nginx Plus customers, which is really expensive. So Lua has been there for many years, but I think in a couple of years, maybe later this year, you can also use JavaScript. And there was one question in the back.
Yeah, you had a pretty simple example, just small data.
Yeah.
And you doubled the responses that you get in the same time. But what about if you have some bigger processes or something like more, something larger or something that require more processing on the server side or something? How does it compare then? Do you get the same benefits or?
It depends. Usually where I have been using this is the situations where Java or PHP or some backend is not doing that well in some small situation, and that small situation is causing a lot of pain for the users, and then we will just replace that small part in the Nginx in the Nginx Lua, because there's not that much ready, well-maintained libraries for the Lua, so it's usually more productive to use something else for the main application and just replace small parts. But for example, the one project we had a Redis cluster. There was 5 nodes and plenty of data going back and forth. And you can really use this in bigger situations, but this is just a demo, which you can use to hack the Nginx with yourself and get more familiar with what I can do with this.
Okay, thank you.
Did we still have it? Okay, thanks guys.